team, and welcome to Bureaucracy. I'm your host, Emily Gross, and I'm very excited today because I have Peter Loge with me, and he is the director of the School of Media and Public Affairs at GW. Peter, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Biden dropped out. That's crazy, and we're here to talk about all of this. So, Peter, thank you for coming. So, Peter is drinking water, which we support. I am not. I am drinking a beer. I'm drinking a Tele wheat ale, watermelon. Highly recommend. Anyways, cheers.
Well, cheers.
So, Peter, could you give us just like the 30-second elevator pitch on yourself and why we should trust what you have to say?
I'm a political pundit, so you probably shouldn't trust me at all. Phil Tetlock, an American academic, has researched actually political pundit predictions and measured them against actual outcomes and found that dart-throwing monkeys are better predictors at political outcomes. And so, that said, the relevant bio is that I'm the director of the School of Media and Public Affairs at the George Washington University. I've worked in and around politics for more than 30 years, including in senior staff positions in the House, the Senate, the Obama administration, consulted, lobbied, all the things that are apparently breaking America and are bad for everything. I've helped pay for my house, to be honest.
Great. You're welcome. So let's hear it. What's your hot take, initial thoughts on Biden dropping out of the presidential race?
It's a little nutty. For a long time I was saying there's no way he's going to drop out, and the metaphor I was using was that you don't fight all night for a seat at the bar and then go home after one beer.
Yeah.
But over the past couple of weeks, it's been pretty clear that he'd lost the support of all of the Democratic establishment and the major Democratic donors, and it kind of became a self-fulfilling story of when, not if. It didn't have to happen, but that it happened, and that it happened this weekend, I'm not sure it's super surprising given the past couple of weeks.
Have you, in your knowledge and history, ever seen something like this?
No one's seen something like this. Johnson didn't run for re-election, but he told everybody pretty well ahead of time. This is I think we're going to take all the unprecedented things about U.S. presidential elections and just cram them into 2024, get them out of the way, and so in 2028 maybe we can go back to normal. I think that maybe that's the plan.
That'd be cool. That'd be nice.
That'd be awesome. I miss boring politics.
So boring. I think Bernie Sanders spoke the other day. He's like, politics are supposed to be kind of boring, right? And it's just a reality TV show. Based on what happened and now, what's your opinion on the messaging and the way that Biden's campaign was handling all of this? Because they were very defiant up until the last moment. And while it felt like the world was crumbling around the campaign, it was kind of shocking.
It was until it wasn't, right? It's the old line, how do you go broke slowly at first and then all at once? Although, according to one report, the Biden campaign was canvassing convention delegates as late as an hour before he announced, saying, "Can Joe Biden count on you?" That said, this all looks pretty well orchestrated. The endorsements are rolling in fast and furious. As I said, I've already gotten a fundraising email, so clearly there was a machine in place and up and running. But it's I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see where we go from here.
Because it's going to come down, right, to these delegates, could there be a lawsuit that makes its way up at the Supreme Court alleging that it's not a constitutionally approved and not a democratic process? Maybe, except that constitutional lawyers, election lawyers are already scrambling to answer all sorts of weird questions. Right.
Like what happens to the $91 million in the Biden-Harris campaign war chest, for example. But parties nominate their candidates. This isn't in the U.S. Constitution. Political parties are not in the U.S. Constitution. This isn't, a democratic process for the whole country. This is how a political party decides who their nominee is going to be. And we have primaries, and you've got caucuses, and some primaries are open. States have where people of any party can vote in them. Others have same-day registration, but it's not. The rules aren't the same in party nominating processes as they are for actual elections for governor, mayor, senate, or U.S. president. In your experience, what do you think needs to be the messaging and the campaign for the Democratic Party in order to fight against Trump in the next 100 days? I think they have to tell a story that the American economy is coming back, that it's more robust than any economy around the world. Wages are rising, unemployment's coming down, inflation's coming down. and we have to continue the Democratic success of continuing to grow and expand the American economy. And the Republicans are going to continue to run on inflation, immigration, and chaos. And look, the Democrats are in chaos. There's chaos at the border. There's chaos with the withdrawal from Afghanistan. The Democrats are just like a spinning top, spinning out of control. We need some order to this. We need some predictability. Go with the strong guy.
Obviously, Donald Trump faced an assassination attempt. The image that came out of that, the one where he has blood on his side of his face, raising a fist, surrounded by Secret Service with the flag in the back, I think was probably one of the best political images in history. How do you think this assassination attempt is going to affect and either help or not help his campaign?
An interesting question, and actually I'm going to pick a little bit of a fight.
Go for it.
I think it's also kind of a terrible question because it reduces political violence to campaign strategy or campaign tactic. It's like the horse race coverage of polls, except that instead of horse race, it's rollerball. I think that what we should do is highlight political violence and say this is outside the norm. This doesn't belong in political conversations. That said, we are in a political season, and as one Democratic operative, unnamed Democratic operative, in one of the tip sheets pointed out, that a lot of voters think that Trump is too nuts and Biden's too old, and an assassination attempt doesn't change that.
Yeah.
Biden's out, but Trump, I don't think is going to get a whole lot of sympathy. He had a chance at that at the convention, and the convention was relatively subdued. I think the Republicans did a terrific job, actually, on balance.
The convention was subdued?
But it wasn't anti-democratic. We're going to burn them down. They want to steal your children.
I'm just thinking of Hulk Hogan ripping off his shirt, but that's fine.
No, but actually, that's like the perfect metaphor, right? It's pro wrestling. It's a perfect metaphor for a convention, right? It's not quite politics, but it's a terrific show about politics. The way pro wrestling isn't quite sport, but it's a great sporting show.
Yeah.
But Trump for 30 minutes sounded like the guy who'd been shot, and we're going to make it normal. And then he spent an hour reminding everybody that he is, in fact, Donald Trump.
Right. How do we calm the narrative? Because everyone's heightened, everyone's freaked out. Like you said, political violence should not be the norm, and unfortunately it feels like it is. I've been to outside the courthouse after Trump was found guilty of the 36 crimes for the hush money case. And I saw for the 15 minutes that I was there, multiple physical altercations between those anti-Trump and those pro-Trump. How, as a world, can we get past this? How, as a world, as an American nation,
That's a great question. I think a lot of it is all of us just being better.
Yeah.
Right. It's easy to pop off. The social media statement, "Hey, I don't know, this sounds like an interesting puzzle. Let's think it through," doesn't get a whole lot of likes or tweets or re-X's or I don't know, whatever the kids are doing. It's the extreme stuff that does. I think we've got to check ourselves on that. I think we all need to sort of think about how we're saying things. The other part is, I think that members of the press, members of the media should be calling out elected officials when they behave badly. And you had this whole group of Republicans and Democrats after the assassination attempt of Trump saying this is unacceptable, this is bad, we've got to dial it back. And the moment one of those folks goes over the top, every journalist in America should call them and say, "Hey, you said we should dial back the rhetoric. You just dialed it up again. Yeah. What are you doing?" And hold people accountable, because we behave our incentives, right? And if there's no disincentive for being a screaming lunatic, a lot of politicians are going to be screaming lunatics.
Yeah. Well, it also feels like it's a cyclical spiral towards doom, because also when someone's a raving lunatic, it gets views,
Right. Yeah, they get rewarded.
Right.
Right? I mean, look at the leaders of the Republican Party, especially in the House of Representatives. These are not folks you want babysitting your children. But, they're on TV. They get invited on podcasts. Probably not this one. I don't know. But
I got an offer from someone who was running in Connecticut, who I think was maybe arrested or something, but he's a Senate candidate. And I was like, do I want to open that can of worms? And I was like, I don't know. I said, I didn't respond. And that's how I avoid conflict. And so
that's healthy. I think that's healthy.
Thank you.
Bottling it up inside?
Yeah.
I think that's, my understanding is that's how you should do these
things. Yeah, no, that's what all therapists say. It's very good. It's very healthy. You have a lot of experience having been within campaigns, having worked on the Hill, having worked as an appointed official. If you were running the Democratic Party right now, what would be your first approach?
The bar would be my first approach.
I think I would focus on rallying around Vice President Harris and pushing out a positive message that the U.S. economy is strong and getting stronger. The markets are up, wages are up, unemployment's down, inflation is down. We're doing great things, and the other side wants to take away your rights. They want to make women second-class citizens again. They want to tell you who you can love, how you can pray. They want to jail political opponents. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense in America. Let's get back to a point where we're rewarding outcomes, not output. And output is the shouting. Outcomes are there are more jobs in America than there were 10 years ago. The market's up.
How would you handle the immigration situation? Because that's the forefront, right, of a lot of people's thoughts, especially the GOP side.
Yeah, it is. It's a mess. I would highlight saying we need a rational approach to immigration that rewards people who want to come here and contribute to America and the American economy. We need to be able to protect people who are fleeing violence, hatred, and repression. People walked from Venezuela, a failing socialist regime, to the U.S., a home of capitalism and democracy, and Republicans want to say, no, what, you have to walk back to the socialists. That just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And I would probably also highlight the fact that Republicans in the House of Representatives killed a bipartisan bill that would have addressed immigration issues in this country.
Right. My concern, and now we're spitballing about what we think is going to happen, is at the beginning of the administration, Kamala was given the opportunity to speak a lot on the immigration issue, right? And she kind of turned it down and kind of turned a blind eye and was like, it's not that important. Is she going to be able to come back from that?
I don't know that it's hers. I don't think people are going to remember that. I mean, the Republicans are going to remind everybody of that.
Yeah.
But, like, we don't remember. People don't know who she is. Nobody, Vice President Harris, isn't she the one who failed the border? Like, they don't. They're like, I don't know. She looks familiar.
So my question is as well, because they were talking, my roommate and I were talking about this, my family and I, we all talk about this. She is, within the polls and within people discussing her, she's very unlikable.
Right.
Why?
I've never met her, so I don't know. I mean, I've heard she's. I like you know,
There's political gossip that she could be demanding. That said, I've got friends who've worked with her and think she's fantastic. She's smart.
Right.
She's won statewide in California. She's been an effective prosecutor.
It's just like, how do we rehab that image, even though when there's most likely, more than not, is no fundamental basis for that opinion. It's just, unfortunately, as we've learned, especially in American society, there doesn't need to be any fact for the feeling,
I'd love to think that was restricted to American society. I think it's a people thing. I think people behave as if they were people.
Yeah.
And that's not always. You look at people behaving. I look at my own behavior in the past and think, wow, that was
stupid.
terrible.
That was weird.
I don't think people know who she is, right? Democratic insiders know who she is. She ran against Biden in 2016, obviously. People who seriously follow the news know who she is. At this point, it's the definition stage, right? And my understanding is the Republican Party and the Trump campaign have deep files on Vice President Harris. I'm going to roll that. Tell the American people, hey, let me tell you about this woman named Kamala Harris. And it's going to be a bunch of stuff a bunch of people don't like. And that's how we're going to learn about her. Part of it might be immigration. Don't forget that a lot of the left didn't like her because she was a prosecutor and her relatively tough on crime policies when she was Attorney General of California. She's not a darling of the left at all.
Right. America's never done this before, So, it's like, what's going to happen next? Like, who fucking knows? No one has any idea.
We're having a parliamentary snap election in the middle of a U.S. presidential campaign, which is a weird mashup.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody walks into a pitch meeting and says, I know, let's do what they did in France, except in July on a Sunday when every journalist and pundit would rather be at the pool. What do you think? And some guy went, yeah, that's awesome. It beats that Sorkin guy's op-ed in the Times, because really, we're kind of done with Sorkin.
We're a good, rational country.
We
Very
always
good.
make good decisions.
Very chill.
Every good decision.
Very. From the research you've done, and you lead politics and ethics and communication, how do we chill the narrative? How do we remember how to engage with people of the opposite side? How do we encourage politicians to engage with people of the opposite side in a way with also acknowledging, like as we talked previously, the way that crazy is rewarded?
A really good question. And I think part of it has to be the incentives. We have to find a way to reward non-extreme behavior. Part of it is journalists holding people to account. Part of it is all of us in the pundit sphere and the journalism sphere and all that, just being more mindful about it. I think it's also, though, important to remember that it's easy to say that, America was great and wonderful and politics was perfect until Donald Trump and Twitter, then the wheels came off. And that's just not the case. In the Jefferson Adams presidential campaign, the president of Yale University, again, and the Reverend Timothy Dwight, said that if Jefferson were elected president, our wives and daughters would be subject to legal prostitution. That's a little over the top.
Just a tad.
Right? When William Randolph Hearst had his media empire, he helped stoke the Spanish-American War, and ship was blown up, and Hearst famously told his photographer, "You provide the photographs, and I'll provide the war." There were whisper campaigns against McCain in the South Carolina primary when he ran. It's not, we weren't these sort of Aristotelian ideals of people discoursing openly, and then, oh my gosh, social media, and we all lost our minds.
Right.
It's incumbent upon all of us to check ourselves, and then also vote. Put your money where your mouth is.
So you can say I can't answer that question, and that's totally okay. You I'm sure have a lot of connects within the political sphere. Do you know any insider details of what was going on leading up to this?
No, I don't. I'm sorry. Did you think you booked a different guest? I'm sorry.
I'm hoping.
I'm the guy who is available. Let's be honest. Sunday.
No.
The Biden. I don't know President Biden. I know people close to him because this is a pretty small town. But his circle is famously tight and famously small, and it's his wife, it's his sister. He's relying apparently heavily on Hunter. Who knows?
In your opinion, is there anything the Biden campaign could have done that could have sustained his campaign and not led to the mass, I would say, screaming for him to drop out?
Yeah, he could have stayed in the race. Screaming wouldn't have stopped, but he could have stayed in. It's his decision. He would have gone to the convention to be the nominee. At some point, you got to get over it. Yeah.
Was there any coming back from his debate performance?
Apparently not. Historically, debates don't really do much. The person who does well gets a bounce, and the bounce fades. But historically, people don't do as badly as Biden did, and then his response was late and bad. Had he come out the next day and said, "Wow, I blew that. I mumbled. I had a cold. It was just that was terrible. But let me tell you what's really going on in America. Immediately own it." Then maybe we would have had a different conversation. But it just lingered and lingered and lingered, and then I was just waiting for to ride a horse bareback and shirtless to prove what a mini was. And I have a huge amount of respect for President Biden, and I'm a partisan Democrat, right? I try to be an analyst and play it straight, but I worked in the Obama administration, right? And I worked for the late Senator Kennedy, and I think Biden's presidency has been remarkable. If you look at it objectively, bills passed, the economy's doing terrific, especially compared to Europe. Unemployment's down, inflation's coming down. Afghanistan should have been done differently. The border should have been handled sooner and better. But on balance, this has been a really successful presidency, and I really hope that Biden is remembered as a guy who devoted his life to public service.
Yeah.
He spent a lifetime trying to make the lives of the American people better and the world safer. That's amazing. And
I think him dropping out is the only thing that could potentially preserve the legacy. Before we conclude, anything else you would like to address about this crazy time we're in? Political communication, ethics, responsibilities? Anything? Beer? I don't know.
I would really encourage everybody overreacting in the moment to recognize that you're only talking to each other. Yeah. Most Americans, most of the time, don't care. They're trying to put gas in their car. They're trying to buy groceries. Most Americans, most of the time, see politics as bad theater. Let's stop proving them right.
Yeah.
Let's start acting like grown-ups. Let's recognize that they are frustrated and the border is a mess, but you can adjust that without being either racist on one hand or having a free-for-all on the other. You can believe in fiscal responsibility without wanting to put the poor on rafts on one hand or reward trillionaires on the other. Like, we can have a complicated, robust conversation, and the less we shout at each other and the more we come into a conversation with a bit of humility, I just think that the happier we'll be, if nothing else, and hopefully politics will get better as a result. Maybe,
hopefully. Peter, this has been such a great conversation. I appreciate all the laughter. I'm your host, Emily Gross, and we'll be back next week.